I just realized I left my coffee in the other room.
Ah, damn it.
How are you, Simon?
I love cold coffee. Ooh.
I have to make it's like down to the last bit anyway, and so I have to
All
make
right.
another one, and it's like, we'll just trudge
It's a
through.
whole thing.
Give me something to look forward to. Let's
I'm
go
good.
this way.
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm always good. That's my saying. Like I'm always good even when I'm not.
Yeah, that's bad.
And I think part of that is like if I'm talking to people, that's a good sign that I'm doing all right. You know what I mean? If you're even there to ask me, then I'm not.
Yeah,
You
like it
know,
could be worse.
yeah, I wouldn't even be able to answer you. So I must be okay. So, I
Yeah,
look,
but
but
that
what?
sounds like you just brushing over un unprocessed somethings.
It's exactly what it is.
I don't think that you should do that.
I think we're always processing something, Simon. And to
Yeah,
deny that is foolish.
that's what I'm saying.
So
Like
I
if
should
you
just not share that with people.
No,
That
I'm
I'm
saying that you
human
should
too.
that you shouldn't just say I'm okay, everything, or like I'm great.
No, I do. I say I'm good. I'm good. Everything's
Yeah,
good.
that's I'm saying that you shouldn't. You should
Why?
be honest about how
No,
things
but it's
are.
true. So let's talk about this for a minute. I say everything's good, even if it's not. It is because I'm able to process, think, and share about it. Right? That
Yeah.
alone defines that it's great. Because if I couldn't even get to that question being heard by my ears, then the answer is obviously not good. Right? So things
Yeah.
aren't ever always good. I mean, think
It's-
about it. When do you
It,
honestly, someone's like, hey, how you doing? You're like, good. And you mean it in every aspect of your life.
I
Every
am
aspect.
great.
Yeah. Right? Like there's always room
uh,
for improvement. There's always things that could be better. And that's what
yeah.
we're living for, which means it's good. It actually means it's good. It's a good thing.
So it's a perspective thing, right? Because
Yep.
you can be in a really bad situation. Things aren't, they are objectively bad.
Mm-hmm.
And relative to anyone else, they are bad. But you can be, well, I'm alive, and that's kind of all that matters. Or, I've got my family, or I've got food, or a roof over my head, or like perspective means you can view it as good. But if it's not really perspective that you're laying on there and kind of giving people an impression that things are good, when really inside you're just like masking what's going on.
Well, that's disingenuous, and I try not to be like that. Um,
But that
that's
happens like subconsciously for a lot of
Well,
people.
a lot of people, that's what most people do, I think, right?
Yeah.
Most people are like, I'm fine. Oh, but their house just burned down. I'll be okay. They just got in a car accident or something, like you said, objectively not good. And I think that people people don't like to be a burden to other people. They also like to show maybe that they're stronger than they should be, than they should feel. Like there's times when we're weak and we need to express that. You have to express that because it's like you're lying. Everybody knows it, right? Everybody around you can see clearly that you're not doing well here, and you're just lying to yourself. And if you're lying to yourself, that's one of the most dangerous places to be, I think, because then you can't
Hmm.
actually move forward in your life. You're stuck there. If you can't even accept the truth of whatever the reality is in front of you, how are you ever going to grow?
You can't.
Stubbornly you can grow through that, but it's not a good growth. It's like a growth, you know. It's It's like
Yeah.
it just happened. I got this growth, you know.
Oh, Kevin, goodness, what happened to you? I'm growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Carson's 15 now. He's hitting his growth spurt. He can keep eating the fast food junk, or we can go hit the gym 2 or 3 times a week, and he can really grow. Right? Like you can accept this is he's got the hormones raging. He's got the time of his life to do that. It's really like if there was ever a time, this is the time to do it. Me at 42, I'm like, I want freaking the testosterone back, man. You bastard. Like, dude, just do something. Wait, I'm his dad calling him a bastard. That doesn't make any sense.
You're like, give me some of that, please.
Seriously. I'm like, got syringes while he's sleeping, trying to. Where's the glands? Where's the glands? YouTubing. Where testosterone created. But,
Oh dear.
you really do feel a difference, by the way, from like 39. You're how old? 38, 39?
39, yeah.
To 42. I felt it.
Don't tell me that. I don't
I
need to
know.
hear that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought at 39 also.
My biggest thing at the moment is like I can't seem to get rid of my belly. You know, I'm like I would say I'm not working hard enough. Like I know that already. I'm not working hard enough to do something about that. But it just I did have a period earlier last year where I felt good. I felt like I was losing a bit of weight. I was toning up and I was just like, yeah, man, I'm doing it. And then we went into the holidays. I just went, screw it. I've earned this. And I just went like, oh. And now I've come out of it and I feel really bad because I feel like I'm back to where I was. And it's, yeah. And I feel it's those things that kind of psychologically get me into a pattern of this could be bad in 3 years from now if I don't do something about it right now. But I reckon I've still got time.
I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but you and I have talked about it, I'm sure. The Ozempic, the GLP ones, the GIP, GLP ones, tirzepatide, semaglutide, blah, 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 all these things. I kind of studied this for a while before. So I worked for a company called New Image Medical in Tampa. They sold something called HCG, human something. This is a while ago, and without getting too into detail, it was an appetite suppressant. It didn't work great. It was kind of counterintuitive, like the less you took, the more it worked or something. So there was varying
I'm
results.
not taking any. It's not working for me.
Right? The less you take didn't help at all. And so that like got me into this mindset of like sort of biohacking and like trying to figure out where am I, where do I want to be, why can't I freaking just do right? And so a year ago, a little bit over a year ago now, I guess just right around a year, I went to the doctor. I was like, hey, everyone's talking about Ozempic. I want to know if it's real, what are the negative side effects? What are the positives? Obviously weight loss, but like, what are the pros and cons? And then she went through the whole spiel. And at the end, she's like, I'll just tell you straight up, I've lost 40 pounds in 3 months on it. And I'm like, wait, you're doing it too? She's like, it's totally safe, actually. I wouldn't recommend it or tell you. And I didn't get a prescription from her. New Image sells it. So maybe a link in the show notes for everybody. Get a little plug there for the old guys. Hey, Mario.
Will they ship it to Gran Canaria?
I don't know if they do international.
I don't think they will do. Nah.
Yeah, I don't think so. And it has to stay refrigerated. Like it's on like dry ice or ice packs or whatever when they ship it overnight. But I would guess that there are some places there. The thing is this, a couple things about that. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's other stuff for us to talk about. Apparently the coffee's kicking in. I'm tripping over my tongue. I went to what are they called? Chronologist? What the heck? My brain.
Endocrinologist.
Endocrinologist. There you go. And I do have like this hormone deficiency in something, and basically it's like I wake up hungry. I wake up thinking about food. I plan my day around food. I'm like, what do we want for dinner? Oh,
You're a
Thursday we're gonna
human
have
being.
this. What's that?
You're a human being.
Right. Well, yes and no, because some people don't think like
No.
this. Apparently, I'm one of those kinds of human beings. Which is, I mean, we're growing in population, at least in America. So I'm like, all right, let's give it a shot. Pun intended.
Hmm.
And the first week, I lost like 6, 7 pounds, and then I lost like 20 the first month, and I've lost 85 pounds in which is I think
Wow.
it's like 37 kilos, 38 kilos for all the international people. It in the majority of that was in 5 months, and I've maintained it since then. I still take it because it's very closely related to the liver and insulin, and just like diabetics need to take insulin the rest of their life, I might have to in order to keep the results, to keep
Yeah.
feeling the way that I feel. And that's a reality that I like. Do I want to? Do I not want to? And I have
How much
taken
is it
like
though?
cost, like
Yeah.
money. So right. So that's so many people like obviously people in my life are like, what the heck did you do? And so I'm talking to people about it, and
Yeah.
they're
Are
like,
you
I
okay?
right. They're like, I know you were divorcing, but is it that bad? Really? I'm like, I'm happy. I'm great. I'm good.
I'm great.
I'm great. Always.
I'm great.
Um, so I spend. They had like a Black Friday something or other because they compound it themselves. I know that sounds like why would you
Mm.
do a Black Friday deal on your life, right? So, but they're I mean they have a it's an FDA approved sanitary. It's like a Class A sanitary whatever
Mm.
pharmacy where they compound it themselves, and so they are the pharmacy, they are the doctors, they do everything there, and
Yeah.
they're able to do that. So I spent, I think it was $1,200 for a year supply. So that's normally that's like $100 ish a month, but it's normally like 300 a month.
Oh wow.
That's without insurance.
Yeah.
They don't do insurance through them. Some people, so this the whole Ozempic brand and Wegovy and Manjaro, those are the brand names, and they compound it themselves. The problem is, like, you end up getting the prescription from your doctor, and then nobody's got it because everybody's taking it, and you can't even find it. And when you do, it's like $1,000 a month, and it's like we can just get like the compound, like the generic acetaminophen versus the Tylenol brand.
But
It's the
some
same
people
thing.
are able to get that on their
Some
insurance, though,
some
right?
people can. Some I have seen very few people get it for free, for absolutely free. If
Mm.
they're very overweight or they're like pre-diabetic, then it's a little bit more likely, but it's still not generally free. And so the way I look at it is, I spend $300 a month. I save more than that in the amount of food that I'm not eating. So it's really it's really free, actually. Uh, it's
This
there's
works out great.
so really, I mean,
Yeah.
I eat whatever I want whenever I want to. Um, but it's not like I can't eat that much, right? So I just have a
Mm.
very low appetite. I'll get hungry once or twice a day. I will take 6 bites of a burger or something like that, and I'm done. Like, I don't finish my meal ever. But it's like I feel good about that, and I feel good. I having the weight loss for my back with the back surgery and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Going into the divorce separation, I thought, if there's some sort of magic pill out there that can help me to be more healthy, I think I owe it to my future whoever and to myself to explore those options, right?
Your
And
skinny future innie.
yeah, and it's worked. So I'm happy about it, and I do
Yeah.
recommend it. I do recommend everyone talks to their own doctor about it, but I'm happy with the results. I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I sent non-referral links, which was maybe foolish, but people I know are losing lots of weight too, lots and
Mm.
lots of weight. Guys that are in my Boy Scouts, the other leaders, a couple of them, and
Hmm.
some people I used to work with, and all sorts of stuff. It's and everyone's like, this is exactly what I wanted, because it's like you feel like you're not. They call it what do they call it? Food brain or food whatever. It's like your brain is just always thinking about food, or you smell something and you're like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, I want a bite of that. Or I just don't think about food anymore. And it's so much more energy that I can spend doing other things. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Do you think it's like the place, maybe this is unfair, but kind of from the outside perspective, America is seen as like a generally quite overweight population, on the average. And and that seems to have been getting worse over the last few years.
hmm
Um, do you think it's a diet thing, a genetic thing, or like a psychological thing?
my personal beliefs is our food is. I think there's a conspiracy, and not to go too deep into conspiracy theory. Of course, the one-time
The
Stevens out here we
bucket's
go.
changing theme to conspiracy theory podcast.
I
Yeah.
do think that the medical institutions, pharmaceutical institutions, and the food lobbyists are in bed with each other, so to speak. And I think that there's a lot of things that are in our same brands of food, like certain cereals and stuff that you have in England, that have completely different ingredient lists because they're banned in other places in the world and they're not banned here. And that should get a
Ooh,
closer look at, I think.
yeah.
There's a lot of food dyes. There's a lot of, we like to use this word in our food, natural flavorings, which if you look into that at all, it does not mean anything natural. It's like it's their way of getting away
Tastes
with,
like an apple. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Like
But
they can
it's made
put
of these chemicals.
it yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that when I was younger, it was things were a little bit more natural. I think that just they've gotten better at processing the chemicals and getting it into the food in a way that they can mask the definitions to suit their pockets. I really think that's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. I mean,
I mean, it's
and
huge
it's
business.
and the thing is they don't want anyone to die. They just want everyone to stay sick because then that goes back into the pharmaceuticals, right? Like let's keep them going to the doctor all the time and
Oh, we're getting into danger territory here.
I don't think I think it's so clearly obvious though. I don't think there's anything
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
any
You've not unmasked something new.
I don't think so.
Can we
Like
get a
Scooby Doo,
protection unit for Shane, please?
please. Um yeah, they're watching me, sure. No, I think that's my personal beliefs. I think that people start so young. I mean, there are I've seen it in my life and many times where a mom with a baby a few months old or just getting teeth a year or two old or something like that, and they're hitting McDonald's multiple times a week and they're eating French fries and they're
Yeah.
dipping it into the high fructose corn syrup sauces and they're chugging it down with processed juices and like it's how can that be good? How is a human born on this earth I just don't see how that can be of benefit. I think that there are plants, there are animals that are for consumption, and that's like you should try to be as close to the source as possible
Yeah.
with things,
I,
right?
I think the problem with that is, in my view, again, a very externalized view, but is that America doesn't really know the true cost of having quality goods like that. And a lot of the drive towards things like McDonald's and cheaper manufactured goods is to try and keep the apparent cost down. And I say apparent cost intentionally because I think it's like the store price that you see for these processed items generally comes across as cheaper at the checkout than like the non-processed,
Sure.
like really natural goods that are good for you. But the long-term cost isn't factored in, and I think that's what's kind of like coming to play a little bit more now. Is the long-term cost is your health, and then the system that's been geared up this way, as you say, to kind of take that away from you, take that money away from you, um, it is just playing you for a cheap fiddle, and yeah. So I think it's got to be really, really hard because when you do try to go and get like the proper food, the cost is so much higher.
So
And that's probably made even worse because not enough people are like buying it. You know, like if it was actually bought at volume and used properly, then the
costs
cost
would
of
go
it would,
down.
yeah.
It's supply and demand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you look at like 200 years ago versus today, the signs of wealth it used to be like everybody's
Yeah.
like peasants, right? And they're skinny, scrawny, a little, and like they're poor. Those are the poor of the. And now it's kind of flipped, and like the kings would be this fat big king, and like wow, he's wealthy because look how big he is. Now
Yeah.
it's like yeah, it's totally flipped. Everyone
It's
stays
what,
full,
yeah.
but for how long can you stay full, right?
Yeah, but at least back then they were like fat off of, they've
Yeah,
eaten
turkey legs and
goats and
yeah,
cows and
good
yeah, all
food.
of that. Yeah, proper good food.
Yep. They didn't have
Where the
McDonald's, I don't
peasants
think.
couldn't even get hold of that. Like they could rub two sticks of corn together. They would be,
Yep.
that's it, kids. That's dinner for the week. It's like,
What was that? Mickey Mouse, the beanstalk one where he's slicing the
yeah.
bean into.
Yeah.
It's
Here
exactly.
you go. um, mm,
Anyway, how's
yeah.
how's things on your side?
Good. We've got some friends staying with us this week, and they've got kids, and we haven't. I mean, we haven't really got space for four extra bodies in the house, but we've made space, and it's been fun. The dog's been going crazy at them every time they walk through a door. He's like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." It's just like, "Hey, shut up!" It's just like more people. Calm down. And then finally, after like 4 days, he's kind of got used to them, which is good.
Nice.
Um,
What kind of
but
dog?
yeah, four legs and a tail.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Don't know.
Hey, 4 legs. It's saying a lot.
Yeah. Dog's great.
It's
Dog's
good.
great. Um, and yeah, it's been fun. It's been a bit stressful because Noelia's been going to work as well a lot this week, so she's been out a lot. So I feel like I've been full on with work. We've got this family staying with us. The dog's going crazy. I'm taking care of the whole house and like tidying up after kids. There's stickers everywhere. There's like, like when you've got people staying, they don't know all the norms of like the way that your house runs, and I'm sort of trying to like not tell them or show them that I'm sort of reorganizing things behind them. But there's a bit of that, and then yeah, just like it's been a bit wild basically, and I feel like it hasn't been as productive a week as I'd wanted because of I'm spending time with them as well, and I that makes it sound like I'm complaining about it. I'm loving having them here, and it's great to see them because there's a couple, well now family that I haven't seen. We never met their kids, and the kids are like 3 and 7 or something
Mm.
now, and it's so nice to see them as a family, and the kids are great. It's so cute to see them all together doing stuff. And my one I'll say regret. I don't regret many things, but my one regret about it is that because I'm so busy, I haven't been able to spend as much time with them.
Mm.
So that's really kind of frustrating. But they did. It was sort of a last minute thing from their side. They were like, "Hey, can we come? Because we've got some time. We've been able to get some flights." And we were like, "Yeah, just do it." But we might be a bit busy. And they were like, "Yeah, it's fine, it's fine." So it's just a little bit like I would have liked to have gone. They went to an aquarium. There's like a massive aquarium here in the city that I've never been to. I've been coming here for so many years, and I've lived here for 4 years, and I've never been to it. And they went to it, and they showed us photos, and I was like, "What? That's amazing!" And they were like, "It's literally the best thing we've ever done." And I'm like, "What?" And it's
Whoa.
like 5 minutes away from my house. Come on, what am I doing with my life? But yeah, that's how it's going.
that stage with kids, that can be, yeah, I've been on both sides of that, and I can absolutely relate to, like, you don't want them to know that you're kind of, letting your OCD kick in. Like, I need my space to be a little my space still, please, but I don't want you to think I hate you, because I really don't hate you.
No.
And also, like, sorry,
They've
can
been
I help,
great.
can I contribute, being the father of the kids and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's yeah,
I've
it's
had
fun.
people come and stay at my place and they've just like done what they've wanted. They've not helped with anything and they've gone without even saying thanks. And I'm just like, well,
Mm.
you're not coming again. And and then I've had, we've got some really good friends and that we've let them come and stay with us and they've been amazing, like super, super helpful. Always like, oh, can we do this? Like, what do you need us to do? Do you want help with that and this and that? Yeah. And it's like, no, no, don't worry. I was like, don't worry. You just do your things, like enjoy it like this was your place, blah blah blah. Um, so they're very much like that, and it's been amazing because of that. But it's still like, well, the one thing for me is the trash. It sounds really stupid, but here they separate all the rubbish. So you've got to have like plastics and cans in one thing, and then you've got to have paper in another, paper and basic card in another, and then the normal like food, um, compostable sort of waste in another. and and the dad, he's like, he's a good mate of mine, but he's just like simple, straightforward approach to most things, which not ordinarily is great. And it means just like, oh, all of this can just go in one bag. That's fine. Just shove all that in one bag. And I'm like, nah, man, you have to split these out now. So I'm like, there's a dirty diaper, and here's the Coke can that goes in that one, and then this really soggy piece of cardboard now has to go with the rest of the cardboard. And I'm just like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
You keep the diapers, actually. They go on the plane with you.
God. Uh, yeah, it's all right. It's good. It's a good. It's going to be a good, like. Should we have kids? Now, because I'm like pushing 40, and yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens off the back of that.
I wouldn't do it again. I'm glad I did it when I did it. I always thought,
Yeah.
like, in it for so long. So Carson's 15. However, my ex had two daughters before I met her, and they were 4 and 8 when I met them, and now
Oh
they're
wow.
the older one's almost 30. So and so I had my share of raising the teenage girls and the baby at the same time and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they had 4 years between them, and Carson's 8 years younger than the middle child technically. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there was a good range. We had diapers
Yeah.
and stickers and sleepovers and driver's
Yeah. Yeah.
licenses and all that stuff at the same time. And like when you're in it for 15 years, you think like you feel like this is going to be my life forever like this. And now we're looking at Carson's only got a couple years of high school left.
Mm.
And what the hell am I going to do with my life after like it's done? Like you're always, once a parent, you're always a parent, right? He'll always be in my life, always, right?
Mm.
But he's not always going to live with me, and he's not going to be with me 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week at all. Like he's going to move on in just a few years. And so like some of his friends' parents and stuff, we talk, and like his best friend's mom and dad, I'm really good friends with both of them too, it makes it a lot easier. But she calls Carson Pumpkin. Hey Pumpkin, and then she looks at me. She's like, "They're moving out soon," and like she just like goes into tears, like literally goes. And I'm like, "What are
Oh.
you doing?" We're at a scouting event, just hanging out with all of it, and she's like crying. I'm like, "Stop! What are you?" I'm gonna cry. Stop it. Yeah, it's a wake up, and like every morning I do take an extra minute and just hug him just a little bit longer than a
Mm.
regular hug, because it's gonna be over soon. And I don't think I want any more kids. And I know that I don't want to for a couple of reasons personally. And this is my personal where I've gotten to. So I don't want to influence you on yours, but I just
You
can
won't.
see like what?
You won't.
Like being 60 and having a 20-year-old, or like if I had a kid today, right? Like, first of all, I don't want to deal with diapers ever again. Like Carson gets kids of his own, and I'm like, hey, he stinks. Your turn. I'm
Yeah.
still not gonna.
Yeah.
No, I don't want that. I don't want the messes everywhere and all that. Like, it's. I want to focus on right now. I want to focus on career, my work, and work towards retirement. I mean, I got 25 years till retirement, and I think 15 of those years is going to be really setting up for that, at least.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a really interesting topic to move into because
Ooh.
I was thinking the other day, I was just like walking, and I think I was listening to a podcast, or I don't know, I can't really remember, but it wasn't that sparked this thought, but like I had this kind of random thought of like, you know, I kind of don't mind if I don't retire. I know I'm saying that now, but I got this was like I just feel like I really enjoy what I'm doing, and it's not like physically taxing enough that if I was like 70, if my mind is at least still there and I still had to do this, I think I'd be okay with it. I'm not saying like that's the view that people should have. I think that traditionally, we've aimed to retire at 65, and some people try and do it a bit sooner, and some people don't mind if they do it a bit later. But I'm just like, a lot of stuff is kind of working against people retiring as the populations generally age as we live longer. And in the UK, this huge kind of thing happened where they have put. I would say it's huge. I mean, most other countries do it this way, but for the UK, it was like a big deal a few years ago where they kind of forced businesses to sort out private pension plans for all of their employees. It was optional before, and now it's like required. And the clear like signal is, the government isn't going to provide enough money for all of these people who are going to live longer in the next 40, 50, 60 years. So we need everyone to play their part and do that. But then instead of it being like a guaranteed income, the pensions go into funds, and those funds are like completely tied to what the market does. And so
Mm.
for the last few years, everybody's been like panicking because their pension funds are going, and they're like, ah. I'm just like, I don't want the panic of that. Right now I'm not employed, and I'm not technically paying anywhere near enough into a pension fund to make it ready in 20 something years time. So I just can't live thinking about that future and banking on that stuff when there's so much uncertainty. And I'm like, the one thing that I know that I can do is keep doing like what I'm doing right now, which is working, even if it's not exactly the same stuff. And I assume that that's going to be possible even then. At some point in that future, I'm going to be able to continue doing something. You know, so well, if nothing else, it's not one or the other. It's like diversification, right? So I'll put stuff into a pension, and I'll have savings, and I'll invest in a property, and these other things. But I'm also of the mind of like, well, I'm probably not gonna just like stop at 65.
I'm not going to stop at 65. I think about this a lot actually, and yeah, I think I'm of the same mindset. My dad right now, he was born in '56, so he'll be 70 next year, August
Same as
next
my
year.
folks.
He is he is old. I like picking on him. He's not that old. He's very active. He's moving now. So he just sold his house, bought a new house, and
Hmm.
just got the roof repaired yesterday, and
Oh,
got the
nice.
dogs up there. He spent the first night there last night, and
Oh,
it got
cool.
down to like, um, I don't know, like 2 Celsius, 36 or something last night, which is in Florida is very, very rare and very cold. So he had a heater, and I haven't talked to him yet. I think he survived, but um, I'm sure he's fine. But he's like, he's got a social security. He bought his house cash. So he
Mm,
doesn't have he doesn't, his bills are like less than $1,000, including food a month. And he makes more than that in
great.
social security. So he's like, I'm like, that's ideal. Now
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want, right? You can, for the most part, on a fixed income. He can
Hmm.
continue to work, and he does want to find projects to work on because for mentally, his mental health, what's he going to do? Just sit there and watch news all day? Like, I
Mm,
don't think so. He'll die a lot sooner, I think, if he did that.
yeah.
Um, but I'm trying to encourage him. He's got like an acre of land now. I'm like, you could do
Amazing.
anything. You could grow trees and sell them. You could you could make crochet blankets and sell. Like you could do anything. Like you could do any hobby you can think of
Yeah.
that you want to do. You can make rockets. Like whatever. Like you could fly airplanes, like little model airplanes, or whatever it is, right? And so trying to encourage him to like don't feel stuck to code. You don't need the extra money. You want the extra money, right?
Mm.
Uh, and there's nothing wrong with that, but
Well, I'm sure part of it will be thinking what he's got to pass on to people like you.
it's me and my brother, and I'm like, you die, I'm gonna have to clean up your mess, whatever is at the house. We're selling the property, and I'm splitting it with Paul.
You're
So
just gonna create more problems, man.
right, yeah, just don't worry about it. No, like, and that I think yes and no. So Carson and I had this kind of talk yesterday, and he said, we were talking about like, when you graduate and what you want to do. And I'm like, I'm hoping to start this business and would love to hire you. You could do also like, I would love to be in the place where I always really wanted to get into property, investing in properties
Mm.
and building a portfolio and need someone to manage that. And I'm like, Carson, I don't believe in formal education unless you're actually applying it. Like so many people take out $200,000 in school loans and they end up with a $40,000 a year with an art major or something stupid. It's
Yeah.
like he's actually really smart though. He could go into computer science. He's great with numbers. He's better than I am with numbers. So I'm like finance, accounting, CPA,
Yeah.
do a little marketing in there just to get your feet wet with it and like just learn some basic stuff how business works, right? Because it doesn't matter what you get into.
Yeah.
He'll be an owner. He's not going to be an employee forever, kind of. You know what I mean? He'll
Yep.
be an owner to some degree at some point, and
Good.
he needs that. He needs that kind of education. Most people, I'm like, you shouldn't go to college. You should go waitress someplace or something. Sorry, but just being real. Like, look at you. I mean, um,
Oh. Oh well. I
everyone's got
mean,
a shot, but
yeah. Exactly. I think
not.
everybody should. But yeah, some stuff you just have to learn on the job, as it were. Because I mean, I always had this view of like, I'm going to get into IT. I'm going to do that straight away. I don't need college, and I knew it a lot already, but I I knew enough to go and get a job. I got a job at 16, but there was so much that I didn't know that I didn't know,
Hmm.
and I found that out really only after 20,
Yep.
25 years, and I'm like, almost 25 years. And now I'm like, oh, damn, I would have done so many things differently if I'd known this like 10 years ago. Um, so yeah, there's some of that I wish that I kind of had a bit sooner. Um, but yeah, you can, I think it just takes people different paths. And I think a lot of people don't, um, they like the idea of running their own thing, but they don't realize that that doesn't mean you're really your own boss. Like No, it just means that you're answerable to even more people.
Yep.
And now you're the one who's got to bring in the goods. You know, like you've got to bring the money home and make sure that it's like all balanced and kosher and set up properly. And if it's not, you're on the hook, you know, whereas at least with a job, you don't have to think about any of that stuff. You can just go into work, let your boss or your, you know, whoever in the business like figure that stuff out for you.
I think people confuse the desire. People will bet on themselves even when they
Oh,
shouldn't bet on themselves.
so true.
And it's like, no, I will do it. And it's like, no, you just want the success.
Mm,
That's good. Okay. You
yeah.
don't actually want to do the work to get there if you're being honest,
Mm,
you know, because if you did, you'd be fine just being an employee for a while and learning the trade and taking your time and doing that.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's I think why I don't believe in formal education. I don't think 18-year-olds, as soon as they get their I'm an adult, they should be thrust into this atmosphere of like you don't like you said, you don't even know what you don't know. Like you had to learn what you didn't know. And sometimes you're taught these sometimes it's good to get this education, some of it up front. The thing is, especially with our career paths, we are constantly educating. I'm
Mm,
constantly educating
yeah.
myself. That never ends. So to get some of the basics down initially, maybe, but I think that most people go into it like, let me just get this college stuff out of the way so I can
Mm,
go and live my life. And I think that's, at least in America, it's the mindset of that's what people are like, let me just be done with the education part so I can go get the money part. When you have to do the education the rest of your life, you're always going to be learning. I think, regardless of what your industry is, even if you're making cupcakes. Well, I mean, Instagram didn't even exist 10 years ago. Now you have to learn that and be
mm,
good at like promoting yourself. And there's all sorts of things that you have to do. So, to be successful, to really make more, to beat the competition, because that's what they're learning. And if everyone else is doing it and you're not, you're going to be behind. And those are the thoughts that the people that, man, it would have been easier if I just worked for somebody else instead of entrepreneurship is not for me. And and it takes that's why I don't like using that word. I think it's overused. I think that if you're like, I'm an entrepreneur, you put yourself into this can of like, you think you're better than you actually are, you know. Like I think
yeah.
that's what it actually means these days. No, I just work my butt off and I pay taxes in a different way than everybody else, you know.
Yeah. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a business person. I want to have a good business that pays me well, that lets me do what I want to do. and and yeah, you know, if I get to retirement age, lets me retire. That's basically
If I get there. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the thing. There's no guarantees. We can plan
Yeah.
forever and never get
This
there.
like this is why I think to a certain extent this is why my career has kind of gone the way that it's gone. In as much because I've just gone, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to go over there now.
Yeah.
Um, uh, within a certain realm of like programming stuff. Because yeah, I've not had this like long view ever. I don't think of like, I always just had this. I know that I can do this. Like, even before I properly figured out how to do it, I just had this like, I know that I can do this thing. I can open up a computer and I can figure out how to write the code that makes it do stuff. And I did figure that out. And then I'm like, well, with that I can keep on doing things. I just like, you know, stack more of these Lego blocks on top of this tower of whatever it is that I'm building. I don't know what I'm building, but I'm just going to keep sticking these things. Oh, a red one? Yeah, that goes there. Yellow one? Cool, sweet. And it's this hideous mess of like stuff that I've done.
That's
But
exactly how
it's
I
fine.
think about it too, which is really interesting. I always think like everything is kind of like in blocks. You learn things in blocks, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like now I can use that to build this thing or I can combine it with that thing that I've already done and
Yeah, that's it. Like you you can take some of those things and you can go and make something cohesive and sensible. Like, oh, all these yellow blocks. Now I can go and do this. Um, but yeah, I'm not doing that at the moment.
Me neither. So
Yeah,
no secret, I'm with Craig, and Craig has me on in any given week. I would say average, it's like 4 or 5 different projects that I'm different code bases entirely, different
yeah,
needs for each one. And it's like that kind of plays into my ADD, ADHD, whatever, which I don't think I have. I'm self-diagnosed. I don't think I actually have it, but I do like to drift, and I need some variety, and that
yeah,
keeps me going a bit. It also gets confusing sometimes too, but anyway.
yeah. Well, I think actually I said all of that, and I kind of feel like the last couple of years I have sort of narrowed the focus even a bit more for me personally anyway. I can't and I was like that. I did when I started doing programming and I got a job at an agency after my first like IT job. I was kind of looking forward to I can do this project and that project and just get like a load of input on all of this stuff and just figure out a bunch of different problem spaces. And that's going to be fun and exciting. And then after like 10 years of doing that, I was like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore because it was too much of like flipping between so many different things. And I was like, I kind of see this path of I want to build a product. I want to build a product that I can focus my attention on and keep on improving. When clients just want, oh, we want this now, and you can't spend time on this other superfluous fluff because that's not going to make us any money. And it's like, yeah, well, I think it is, but you're not giving me time or budget to do that stuff, and that's really irritating me because I feel like I know better now. And then I had the chance to go and do that and like just focus on one thing, and it went really well. And I was like, I really enjoy this. This is what I want to do. And then I've kind of been forced to go back into doing lots of things for lots of different people. But then in the last maybe, it's probably more just like the last year or so, really. But since the birth of native PHP, I'm like becoming more and more, this is the thing. This is the thing that I want to do. And it's not because it's been like, in some respects, I feel like it's caught fire a little bit. That definitely plays a part, but I think it's just a thing that I've really wanted to do for a really long time, and I finally kind of nailed it. And I didn't really care if people were going to like it or not. I've just gone with it, and I just keep going back to that. It's like initial moment of figuring that stuff out 2 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, man, it's still really awesome, and it just drives me to keep on doing some more in that, and I think that's gonna. I really feel like that's gonna be the thing that I do for the next while. I don't know. It's tricky to say because of the view that I've always had. Like I'll just whatever comes along, I'll give that a go, and go off in a different direction. But I'm getting to this place where this is feeling a little bit more like I hate to say like a sign because I don't believe in that, but it's like Aaron Francis said something about these things aligning. What did he say? There's this word that he used. Your vectors are sort of all pointing in the same direction. And it feels like a lot more of those have kind of aligned for me recently. So just kind of following that along.
I learned Laravel. I think the first time I started falling in love with Laravel was because I was watching Laracasts,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Way. And after maybe 6 months of watching Laracast, this is like 2014 maybe.
Mm.
Maybe, yeah, around that time. 6 months to a year, I started realizing he's got all these people paying him money, and all he's doing is recording his screen, building the site that they're using. And I'm like, what a freaking genius. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine just building a site and just showing how to build the site, and people pay you to see how you're building the site that they're using. Just like, like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like Inception. Like, it's just so smart. And that got me to like, I want to do that. I want to have a thing. This is my thing. People pay me to build it, and I can do it however I want to. And it's almost back to that entrepreneur mindset, or like, people will bet on themselves even if they shouldn't, kind of thing. And I want that freedom. I want that ability to choose what to do next. And like,
Yeah.
he did another site rebrand recently. Again, he did one just like a year ago, and he did it again. Did another. There's like more elements, and it's always changing and improving, and it looks awesome. And congratulations to him. He's earned it. He's deserved it. He's very smart, and he's very good at explaining things. But all that to say, native PHP, I feel strongly about as well. The mobile stuff, and I'm not quiet about this. Every time it's come up. I saw in Nashville, it was the last day, the second to last talk, Marcel, and I was standing over on the side. I wasn't feeling well. This is before I had the back surgery, and that was playing into like a headache thing. I actually left for Aaron Francis's talk right before it. Right before that, Aaron Francis was on the side with me, and I was like, "Hey, instead of tweeting questions, can I just ask you to ask him?" And I'm like, "I wonder what the packaging is like. Like, how do you like build this for whatever? And like, does it just go to S3 buckets, or how does that work?" And so he asked that on stage, and that was pretty cool. I was very excited to hear like, holy crap, this is really cool. My first thought was native PHP. When I first heard that, I was like, wait, we can do Laravel on phones? And so you and I have talked about this many a times, and that's been kind of like, for me, I think of like, I could build a like a grocery store scanning app if I'm doing it for a desktop or something like that. But actually, that would be better served on like an Android device, actually, like a tablet or something. Like, you could use the camera and scan things, or you could use a desktop, like a whatever, a Linux or an old Windows or whatever, like something cheap, because people, that's what grocery stores do. Some cheap hardware, some good software, and so like, but then I'm like, man, if you could do this on phones, that's going to change everything. If I don't have to learn anything new, and I could just say, build for Android, build for iOS, that's unreal. And now it's becoming real, and that's
And
exciting. That's so exciting. And it's, congratulations to you and the whole effort. That's, and me like learning. I tweeted yesterday, the day before, one of my best tweets of the
yeah.
year, or in the last 12 months, I guess. It's got like 80 likes on it or something.
Ooh.
It's like cracking that a bit, just seeing how it kind of works, because you haven't given me much direction other than you compile PHP into a library and you plug it in, and that's it. Like that, I took that and started running, and it's been, I think,
Yeah.
probably close to a month now. I've been playing with it and getting it to actually evaluate some PHP, and I'm going for some. I haven't even told you. I'm going for some bigger stuff than what you've already done, actually. Thread safety
Oh,
stuff. Anyway,
oh,
yeah.
oh my
Getting there.
goodness.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
If you crack that, that would be amazing because that's going to make the speed of the whole thing even better.
The problem is, one of the problems, at least with this version of PHP, which I just had some weird anomalies this morning, actually, but that's a separate thing altogether. It's I don't think it's going to be that hard. There's a couple patches that have to be made to make this work for Android, at least on the Android side.
Yeah.
But it's just modifying a Zend file and a tsrm.c or something like that. And it's just little things, and then you recompile it and you tell it to enable and it's there, and then bring it into the project itself and enabling it and working with it. That might be a little bit, hopefully not trickier, but I bet it will be, because this is already tricky enough. Like, which flags do you set on, the C flags and whatever. That's less podcasty talk. That's more Shane and Simon talk. But
No, I want to talk about it.
yeah, I know. I don't care. Like, if you stuck around this long, if you
Yeah.
stuck around past the healthcare conspiracies, then if you made it this far, we'll talk about thread safety.
Yeah. Next topic is crochet.
And crochet. Thread safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Crochet.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning, like seeing that work. And that's what I got like a hello from PHP, just kind of working and looking at some of the code that you've done and bringing that in and seeing out how to like actually interpret Laravel. I did actually, by the way, get it. I'm in the middle of switching it over from C++ to C, and I think we can use
Oh.
almost all the same stuff. We'll be able to at least have like methods that we either override or pass in our own variables into it that are specific to us, and we can use some of the same code. And I think that's really
amazing.
cool. That'll be really cool. That to me would be like, then it's not, you don't have to worry or wonder. You'll know exactly where things are. I'll know exactly where things are. And yeah, get that going. And I think that within a month, that's where we'll be.
Sweet.
That's my goal. I think it's very realistic. I'm pretty close to it now. I spend a lot of time on it. Craig lets me spend a lot of time. It's not Craig lets me.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, no, really. Thank you, Craig. I try to keep him satisfied. I have to take whole days of not looking at this at all because I just get distracted and I don't focus on what I need to for him. So that's been a little bit of a relearning curve. I should already know that by now. But,
The heart wants what the heart wants.
I'm sorry.
Well, I should reward Craig with something because that's,
I'll take him out for dinner, I think, in Denver. I think that's what I'll do.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's hard for me to fall asleep. It's hard for me to stay asleep, which is strange for me. I wake up and just like my mind wakes me up and I'm like, oh, I did this last night. Because I'm like doing nm. I don't even know what that stands for. Nm lib php.so pipe grep. So it's like you can take your .a or your .a, but I'm .so, I'm shared. And you can like search the whole library for what definitions it's exported with nm. And then you can search with grep on that. So like I'm fighting with tsrm, ls cache, whatever. And so I'm constantly doing that. Well, the command that I just hit up in my command line to grep is my build cycle is I build everything and then I copy my built files into the Android project.
I do the same.
All in one line, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm nm. I'm searching the shared file that's in the Android project. That's just I just hit up and enter and it just does it, right? Like I just build and then search. I realize though there have been times, not every time, but there have been times when something would fail and it would compile, but it failed at some later point that it didn't actually copy the file over yet. And I'm basically searching on an old file if this definition is there. I'm like, wait a minute. It could have been working this whole time and I didn't even know.
I hate those times. Yeah. It's like, oh, damn, I forgot to I copied the wrong one. Like sometimes, because I've been doing these builds where I combine, there's this tool called Lipo, which like combines two compiled binary files into one if they're, well, yeah. Anyway, so there's like this Lipo step in most of my build scripts. And then I have to copy the Lipo file. And sometimes I've copied like the one that's just built for one version of ARM 64 architecture because there's like, well, I've built it for two. and plus the simulator, right, on Mac or yeah for iOS, and so you end up with like three versions of the same thing. And if I've made it so that the Xcode project can flip between if you're going to run it on the simulator, it can use the simulator build. So we don't need the simulator build in the final like bundle, but the final bundle, like what will actually go onto a device, currently contains ARM64 and ARM64E, and I've sometimes mixed those up, and like my devices are ARM64E because most of them now are. And yeah, it's just like, oh, this is such a nightmare. And you have to do quite a lot of work to like make the process just smoother for yourself. And I just don't know if I could have done this, even 5 years ago. There's just so much stuff here that's so complicated. When you're coming from the world of like, all I have to do is compose a require, and now I've got some new functionality just baked into my app, and it's Laravel's auto loading a bunch of stuff for us, and you don't even have to publish config files or whatever, and then you come into this world of C and all this like crazy nonsense. It's like there's header files, and there's implementation files, and there's libraries, and it's like, oh my good configs. What are they called? Oh gosh, yeah, it is the config file. Like this generated thing that goes and builds everything when you're using make and stuff. It's just like, oh, you look at it and it's like 10,000 lines of junk, and like, I don't want to try and figure this out. I don't want to try and figure this out. So yeah,
I
I'm
look
like,
at that. Oh,
go
go
on.
ahead.
No, it's fine.
Okay. We'll just stare at each other. No. I look at that two different ways. I had no idea. Again, you didn't give me much other than like the principle of how you didn't say like we talked a little bit the other day about a couple of things, but this is better, right? Because now I've figured it out on my own, and I understand not everything, but I understand enough to. I didn't know what I'm still kind of grasping the whole concept of header files versus implementations, and I get it, but I look at that. Yes, I don't want to do this, but also nobody else is doing this. Not from our world. We talked about that a bit too.
Yeah.
There's people that know this through and through, but they don't care anything about Laravel.
No.
Nobody from Laravel is doing this except us. So there's like this opportunity of like, so I was up until like midnight, 1 o'clock looking at like, what are the 8.4 configure flags? What are all the possibilities? What other things can we easily enable, disable, or like there's some defaults that I didn't understand or realize, and then there's some things like if you disable what is it? If you disable, I can't remember what it is, but if you disable one, it automatically disables something else too. That I had
Yeah.
both flags in there, and I didn't. It was redundant,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the anomaly I had this morning. So I'm looking at the docs, and it says do these. Well, when you first compile PHP, it says, hey, these are some extra flags that we don't even care about or understand, but they were taken right from the docs. So that's kind of, now I have to go into like, is my make command using something different maybe? Or I don't know. Because it's the same version. But I get excited about nobody else is in this space. Nobody else is doing. And if I look at anybody that's really done anything here, it's you and it's Marcel. Who else has really like been compiling PHP for the community for any capacity? Forge, I guess, like building all that stuff, and like, he's got commands when you spin up a new server and stuff that do some similarities.
I
It's
think
probably
I don't really know directly. I mean, there's projects that are using the static PHP CLI project, like Franken PHP, for example. And yeah, what else? I mean, in my kind of discoveries, like a bit of research around this whole problem last year, I did bump into a few projects like from way in the past where people have tried to do things both on Android and iOS, um, and they kind of got things sort of working. You know, I saw apps on the App Store that were running PHP. Technically, the app wasn't built with PHP, but it has got it set up in a way that it can run PHP on the device. So like that wasn't new, and that gave me hope that at least Apple would allow the stuff through because of the way that those apps are working. But what they failed to do was to make it so that this was sort of reproducible and continue with it and try and make it so that people could build apps with it. And I think it's that trigger point of if you can get past this sort of initial hurdle of like, this is something that people can use to actually build applications that run and do the kinds of things that a native application can do on the device, like, you know, camera, GPS, blah, 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 all the native stuff. That's when they're going to go, oh, well, I'm going to do, you know, and then for Apple, the hurdle of can you get it through the store? Then as soon as you kind of tick those boxes, then people go, oh, I can do this. And the project starts rolling downhill, it snowballs a little bit. And that feels like what's happening right now is, you know, I've kind of pushed the snowball in one direction that's never been looked at before. Like everybody was sort of going down this way, and they hit a dead end, and it just like, you know, hit a tree or a rock or something and just fell apart because there was no impetus behind it from anybody else to say this is cool, we should continue with this. Everybody's kind of just gone, yeah, but Apple will never allow that, or yeah, but it's running on a web server and that's complicated, or what, you know, 100 different reasons why they shouldn't do it. And I've just gone, I'm going to look over here instead. And I've rolled this thing, you know, just like, and now it's going.
I think that something that you've said, but I think there needs to be more emphasis on this. So, one, all right, so back to the point you were kind of making is that nobody looking to build a native mobile app is thinking, how can I do this with Laravel? Nobody is. Everybody that is a Laravel developer, if given the opportunity to just same code, you don't have to learn anything new, and now you can add this on to, would be like, are you freaking kidding me? And it's like, yeah, you'll have GPS, you'll have flashlight, you'll have NFC, you'll have everything that you want on Android and on iPhone, on tablets and on without having to learn anything except for the new functions to call the native stuff, right? The native.
But all of that's going to be like predictable in the IDE anyway.
And understandable. Yeah, it'd be easy to, yeah, it's, and what is it? I mean, there's how many different native things are there? 50? I don't even think there's that many, right?
Probably not.
And the ones that people
there will
use
be loads, but yeah.
Yeah, but not hard. And it's like, here's a single document page of like, just call this. This is what you pass in. This is what it returns. And that's it, right? So it's very simple. And so there's, anybody looking to build native apps is not looking here, but everybody here would love to build native apps, learning nothing brand new. You don't have to learn inertia. You don't have to learn, you know, some other wrapper of some sort to make it work. It's just put it here. Oh man, I've lost what I was going to say.
No.
Second, damn it. It was also good. Just think about how good it could have been.
Yeah, the whole deal is,
I remember,
just so, for me, like, so good. And this is the place that I've always come from. It's like, I don't care if somebody turns around and says you shouldn't do this with PHP, or like, I don't want to use HTML, CS, and JavaScript to do this. You know, I want to use native UI elements. I'm like, cool. There's loads of tools for that. Go and use one of those. Go and learn those. Do it the way that you want to do it. We're living in a time where all of these things are available. but it hasn't been available to do it with PHP. So don't decry me my opportunity to do this with PHP because that's what I want to do.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for everybody else. I'm literally doing it because when I wanted to try and build an app this way, it wasn't possible. And the first step was, I want to cross this ravine. Well, I need to create the bridge in the first place. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and learn how to build a bridge. I'm going to come back and then I can cross the ravine. And it's like, oh, then a bunch of like Neanderthal, that's not fair. A bunch of people who are on this side have gone, oh, you created that bridge. I'm going, yeah, that's what I said. I was going to do that. And you were all like, nah, you shouldn't build a bridge here. But you can come now if you want. You can come across.
It
You
is
know,
exactly like that in every sense of
it
we're a
is.
bunch of
And they're
like
like, ah.
very primitive beings. And you literally were like, oh, I got it. And then, yeah,
Ooh,
really?
ooh.
Yeah, Simon got it. Like, what? For real?
Yeah, no, just to be clear, I am the least of those people, right? Because I know nothing about everything. So,
Right.
all I've just gone is, I want to do that and just figured out how to do it. And I think anyone can do that.
I'm,
What
I'm,
was your second thought that you forgot and remembered?
the fact that, all right, so I think there needs to be more emphasis on that where this is not a web server running inside of, we're not emulating this, that
Mm,
this is a real. So first of all, I always, until like maybe even this morning when I saw your tweet, or was it last night, about like how PHP is actually a
good for this.
proper language for building, not just like you think, oh, PHP is a server, it's a server language. No, it's not. It's a language
It's a
that runs on
language.
hardware. It's a
Yeah,
language.
exactly.
It's just as much stemming from C as anything else that stems from like that. How much closer to the metal can you actually get than C? And that's where it's coming from, right?
Yeah.
You're right next to binary at that C level. So now it's like, no, the server is just like one implementation of what this can do. Well, there's all sorts of other things that you can do that nobody's explored yet. No, really. I mean, there have been some, but
Mm,
and no one's really explored it to publicly in an audience like the Laravel community. Like
mm.
there's not ever been a community for PHP like Laravel. They're WordPress, but not really. You would think who the big developers in WordPress? Thank you. You don't know any of them. Like some
Sorry,
shop in some
sorry.
country, someplace. Like you don't know. Like no one knows.
I used
It's
to, but they've all moved on from WordPress.
smart. They're in Laravel now. Exactly. So like, yeah, to me, it's like I'm not trying to or we're not trying to break the server to work in this manner. We're starting from the source and building it in a totally different implementation than
Yeah,
for like a server. We're mimicking server like behavior because that's how Laravel likes to communicate with PHP. And
yeah,
that's it.
exactly.
And that's it. I mean, I think that needs a lot more emphasis than, because I would assume that that's what you're
Yeah,
doing is you're just as native as you are with using Electron under the hood or something like that, and that's not true. This is actual native code.
yeah. There's always going to be people who are going to say this isn't native because like my interpretation of native tells me that this isn't native. Like, well, I don't know how close we can get to it for those people to ever. And this is, I don't want to convince them. Like, I don't need to change their mind about whether it's native or not. That's not the point. The point is to go and build stuff.
Right.
We must ship. We must just ship, damn it. And that's like, if I can't just ship, I'm gonna like build the bridge that lets me ship, and that's what I'm doing. And um, yeah, well, hopefully enough people just get that and just go, well, yeah, it's not 100% native the way that, so and so over here says that it should be in order to be considered native, but by golly, it lets me ship, so I'm going to use it. And the stuff of like, well, it relies on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build the UI, and it's rendered in a web view. So what? It's like web views are pretty blooming good.
Mhm.
You can get like 60 frames per second plus in a canvas element and all of this. People are doing really crazy 3D stuff in JavaScript, all in web views on an iPhone, just over the internet. Now you can do that fully on device with PHP in the background. Like instead of having to learn Swift and all of that stuff, whatever. Um, and it's just like those kinds of things that people don't sort of fully appreciate that we're standing on top of gigantic pieces of work that have been done by way smarter people for decades, and this is just like a little little chunk on the top that just lets us do it in a slightly different way. It's not like we're breaking paradigms and destroying the universe.
No.
We're just doing things slightly differently, and it opens up the door to a lot more people to get into this field. And yeah, I'm just like, it's super exciting to me for all of those things and many more reasons.
You've hinted at this. Um, I'm guessing you've explored this some, and I want to hear. Uh, I want to hear the answer to this. Um, HTML, CSS, JavaScript in the front end, Laravel application, and we're sending data back and forth in our own way to this PHP binary that we've
Hmm.
compiled specific for these devices in a web view. Is there a way, do you know, to make our own sort of blade macro that gets interpreted as a native XML or whatever it is on the back end
Mm.
of the device instead of it being a web view? I don't know. I don't know how you can skip the web view part, I guess is my question, if you've explored that at all.
So I think it will be possible, but the thing that the web view gives us is like this kind of proxy to the traditional client server HTTP request response cycle. So um, we continue thinking in terms of URLs and request headers. The request type being a get or a post or something else, and cookies and all of these things that kind of Laravel has built around because it's very web focused and because PHP has been very web focused. So, it's kind of architected in a way to like work in that environment really, really well. And if we get rid of the web view, we just have to find a way to kind of still operate in that fashion. Okay, so you
Mm.
just go,
Oh,
right now. Yeah. Oh
got
yes,
it.
oh
I
that's that
gotcha.
easy. No, let me try and explain it. So, uh, what's happening when you hit the web view right now, or when the app opens? Sorry, it's not even think about it as hitting the web view. It's not like we're making a request in a browser where we typed in a URL or tapped a link, where the browser triggers the action. We load a web view and we give it a URL, which is just a kind of a formality. But what it's doing under the hood is then kind of building a request for us. That's essentially all it's doing. It's building the request, and we take all of that request information, we package it down, and we send it to PHP. So we could totally skip all of that part. We could just say build the request ourselves. So it'd be a little bit more manual, and there'd be, I'd say, manual from our perspective as the developers of native PHP, like that from that angle. We'd have to manually kind of construct all of the parts to make it look like a request from PHP's perspective. And we'd still even use the concept of a URL. It's not going through the web view to create all of that context for us. So, okay, we've got our request object, and now we pass it to PHP as normal, like what we do off the back of the web view at the moment. And then what happens? Well, PHP is going to run the application that we've got bundled in there, and it's going to try and handle that request in whatever way it thinks it should. Now, the typical response from PHP, the one that we're so used to as Laravel developers, is some kind of view coming back. It might be HTML, it could be JSON, it could be anything. Like, we can make it whatever we want, but it's headers and the content. And the content could be HTML, JSON, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing to say that that's got to go into a web view. Like, it's a convenience right now that the same tool that we've used to create the request is also capable of handling the response and fully rendering it out and seeing that there's JavaScript and CSS and all of these things and going, okay, I know what to do with this. I'm going to render this as a web page. And it does that for us on the screen. Again, that's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. All of that web view stuff has been done. We benefit from that. As that keeps advancing, we keep advancing. I don't have to do anything to make that happen. It just happens. Great. But if we don't want it to render HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, if we wanted to do something else, we have to handle the response ourselves. And if the response is just it doesn't even have to be anything necessarily because of what's going to come in the middle. And what's going to come in the middle is, what is PHP doing when it's rendering the response, when it's preparing the response? Well, it's running all of this code. And in our views, in a typical view, in a Laravel application, it's just blade code, which is just PHP functions, which are going to return strings, and they're going to manipulate strings until we get a finalized, hopefully logical HTML document. But what if those functions didn't return strings? What if they triggered native UI components to be rendered by the native UI engine of the device? Then you don't even have to think about the response, because the response is going to happen as part of PHP's handling of the request. It's like we actually kind of skip a step. So it will come to the point where, as the final stage of your Laravel application is like preparing the view, and it's like flushing that out to what would be the client, is going to flush this whole HTML document out to the browser. When it does that, it will like commit all of these function calls to render UI elements. But instead of returning them as strings and injecting them into the HTML, it will just trigger that UI rendering process on the device. So then, in theory, what you could do is have blade components or blade directives, or a combination of those things, that are just representations of these function calls that let you render native UI elements in the order that you lay them out in your template file. But it's not going to render any of that, really. It's going to offload all of that to the native engine, and so the native engine then renders the UI. And I think that is ultimately like this amazing place that this could get to for UI rendering.
Question then. What about like, how far away from a Laravel application then am I? Right? So like, what if I want to hit a controller method and have it do something with some data and...
Right. I don't know, because I haven't started exploring this.
Yeah.
Imagine like you've got a component that's a button. So you've got this button component. Right now, you would have maybe a button component that renders some HTML, a HTML button. And when you press the button, it might have, if you're using Livewire, like wire click, or if you're just using a HTML form, it's wrapped in a form. And when you press the button, the web view goes, oh, this is a button inside of a form. What do I do here? Or you've got some JavaScript tied to it that says on click, do this stuff. But you haven't got HTML, you haven't got all of those affordances. Now you're just rendering a native UI button instead. But we're rendering it for you. So native PHP could be rendering this for you, which means we can get in on that process and inject into it what the button should do when it's tapped. And what the button should do is call back to your application and to run
It's
that
all there.
whatever logic
Yeah.
you've got. So
Yeah.
if you say in your view, your component, that what you want it to do, we could basically have it wouldn't be a wire click because obviously that would be like Livewire's naming, but we could have a native click, and it calls a function, and we just pass that along to the native button and say when this button is tapped, the developer who's used this component has said that they want to run this function, which is a PHP function. So we want you to call the PHP thing and do the stuff that needs to be done to call their function that they've told us to call. And so they tap the button, and then it fires up PHP, and then it calls their function in PHP. And whatever that then does is what happens to the app. So yeah, I mean, there's loads of edge cases and weirdness that I've got to work out with that. But in theory, in my head, this all works. There's no problem from my perspective getting that to actually work. So you could just end up with this app where you have a blade view, essentially, but that's using this component, I'll say component library, which is like blade components, but when you use them, it renders native components.
I just had an idea.
Hit me.
So, all right. So what does this afford us then? What does this really do for us? This makes it so that we are even closer to the metal. We are even closer to being native, right? We are even, we're more accepted, and it's going to be quicker, right? Like that's ultimately, we're trying to reduce lag, latency, et cetera, by being a true native application. We're just able to do this with the Laravel that we all know and love, and hopefully not have to learn anything new. Because if I had to learn too much new, then I may as well learn React Native or something like that.
Yeah, but that's the problem is if you go into the world of React Native right now, you've got to go into that world. You kind of you can't just tack Laravel on the back end, not right now, and just expect to be able to do
or the
that.
back end.
You've got to
That's true.
you've got to adopt the whole ecosystem of that tooling in order to use it to build your app. And it's I don't want to do that. I want to write my app in PHP. But then for those people that really, really want to use native components and all of those nice native interactions of stacked views, swipeable pages and stuff, and you don't want to rebuild all of that stuff in HTML and JavaScript, I get that. But then this will be the thing for you, And thing, you'll be able to mix and match. So you could actually have for these screens, it's a web view because I don't want to mess around with the native. I don't need to mess around with native. But for these screens, it's completely native UI rendered. Could be very cool.
Here's my idea. So what this affords us is not having to leave the Laravel we all know and love. And we can build our own blade macros that are native, and we'll be able to interpret that because we understand that. Mm-hmm. Or we could find a very popular, already adopted blade framework and just hijack it.
Yeah.
You don't have to learn any. You could just use Flux. Maybe you put a native attribute on your body or something.
Yeah.
Or on the, you know what I mean? And that's it.
Just
and then we just know,
switch.
that just tells us This is what you're going to use. This is how it's going to be compiled for these devices and
Ooh.
sent right back to you.
Ooh. Oh my
I'm sure you've
God.
already thought of this. You already had this the same exact idea, didn't you? Yes.
No, no, no. I like Flux, and there's other UI libraries as well that have been built in Blade, but um, so hijacking one of them or any of them to add this stuff in just feels like there's a you've got to get to 100% of what that library does relatively quickly, for it to be not a problem. Because people are going to they're going to go, oh, that's cool. So I can just use this UI library and it's just going to work. And it's like, well, then they try and something doesn't work. And it's like, you know, or you'd have to have like explicit documentation around like
Yep.
why this doesn't work and why this thing's
Well, and
hanging off
it's
in a weird way.
look, where you're in your browser while you're building this with Flux, you're going to see a button that looks probably totally different than the way that the app will interpret build the native button or slide over or whatever, pop over,
Yeah.
And so like ideally what you're going to end up with is a very an actual, not very, like it's not going to look like it's native. It's going to be actual native components that you end up with that's returned to you on the device itself. So you can say you can use the we're just using Flux as an example. There are many things. The trivia app that you did looks very fluxy. It is
Well, it
Flux.
is
It
Flux,
doesn't
yeah.
look like an iOS button, right? It looks like a Flux button. But if we had this interpretation layer for those, it would be a native button. It would be, and so
Yeah.
you could say, hey, look, does this button have a variant on it? Is it small, extra? And so translate that for Android and iOS to whatever their definitions are for those similar kinds of things. The color palettes, for example, let's you make it primary or blue, whatever it is, right? Like, what does that interpret as if you bring it into the native world and returned as? And so I think that's another whole, like that part of it working, right? And now you just use something that's already out there. And you could, it's a lot of work. It would just one library is a lot of work, but you could find a couple of these libraries that are out there, MariUI or whatever, and make it so that it's doing the same thing. And you just say native, and we'll say, okay, we got you. This is what it's going to look like. And you can tweak
Yeah.
things all you want to and define colors and whatever, but
That would be epic for sure.
it's a
And I
long way
think
from now.
a stepping stone towards that is to kind of give people, there's like an infrastructure layer under that, right? That enables not just the Blade components to render native components instead, but also to pass information back through to PHP from native components.
Hmm.
So if somebody already knew how to build native components or UIs using native components, they could do that. And they
Right.
could, if we had the infrastructure layer in place,
Yep.
they could just do that like
Yep.
the way that you do that and use PHP under the hood already. Like,
Except that's going to be different from iOS to Android, isn't it? There's nothing that's going to combine them and
that's true. There's
decipher.
nothing that's going to look at the platform and go, I know how to do this on this platform and that,
We could
on the
surround it
other
with like
one.
at if is Android, at if, and just build it twice, which
Yeah, but
sucks.
it's also some of that infrastructure stuff in that direction maybe doesn't even need that. It might just be like, however you do this on Android, the trigger function is this one on Android,
Right.
and when you do it on iOS, the trigger function is this one, and as long as you know which context you're in when you're building the UI, then you know which function to call. Then it's going to work. So I don't like even that wouldn't be a problem, but yeah, that would then lead to that's like infrastructure layer first, and it would lead to people being able to build UI libraries. And that's the other thing about this. I'm excited about all of these different angles that we could go
Yeah.
and all of this stuff that we could build. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't need to build all of these things myself.
Right.
I don't even necessarily want to build all of these and
Right.
support all of these things. And I think that's kind of like Laravel. You know, Laravel for many years has had the opportunity and the possibility to like nail a UI library. It's never done it.
Right.
Even with the starter kits that are coming out next week, they're still not really committing to doing that. They've left that to
Roll your
React
own,
and Vue and yeah,
whatever. Because
and
everybody's so
Flux.
opinionated about that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think if we can provide like conveniences to allow people to make
Yep.
those things in a, you know, using the tech that they've got rather than having to sub out to some other process or some other language or whatever, then great, you know.
It could literally be an env just says run native, and then as long as you're passing your blade, your views in the way that we need it to be to interpret it, and we would have document. Guys, anybody listening still, sign up for the EAP, get us some funds so that we can spend more time building. Because there's, I mean, we're talking like we already know like the next year or so of working on what we're working on, where we're going to be, includes almost none of this stuff. Like we got a long ways to go. I think not a long ways. We've got a ways to go to get to stuff like this. But
I'm
this
going
is
to
the
tell
stuff
you,
that makes it that much nicer.
I am already talking to people
Oh,
to
you son
bring
of a
in.
bitch.
Like, I'm like, this. I saw a tweet from somebody yesterday and I was like, wait, they're doing some iOS stuff with like widgets. I was like, man, widgets would be so cool. You know, it would be awesome. I don't, you know, like just to be able to have your app roll a widget out and people can stick that on their home screen. Imagine. And it's like, what if we could make that in Laravel and just make that really easy? I don't even know if it's possible, but it's just like, how do you
Anything's
do it?
possible.
I don't know how you even do that on iOS because I haven't got that far yet. And I'm like, I want to get to that place where we can enable that, but I can't prioritize that now.
No.
But if I can speak to somebody who knows how to do it and I can pay them to do some work,
What's
then
so hard
I'm
about
like,
making?
come on.
How much different would we have to do anything to make a watch app or a Apple TV app? Not much. It's the same thing. We're
It's
already
the
there.
same.
We're already there. We can actually do that. We can
Imagine
literally
that.
build. You could.
Netflix on Apple TV made with PHP. Oh, Laracast.tv.
Ooh. Oh, you could have the little watch app that, and it's hitting your account API keys
Oh,
to pull in your data, and it's all built with Laravel. That's the beauty of it. It's all built with. We didn't
Jeffrey, that
learn.
was my idea. Well,
Yep.
no, it wasn't
Well,
actually. Somebody else came to me with that before. But now, like Apple TV, hell yeah.
yeah. Laracast.tv. Wonder if that domain's available. I'll sell it to Jeffrey. He probably bought it already.
That would be, I mean, killer. It's not. It's not even.
What? It's available. Are you gonna buy it?
No, you get it. I'm not.
That's so cruel, isn't it? Like I feel bad.
No,
Like
do it.
$50.
What? That's crazy.
Well, everyone's moving. Where do you buy your domains from? This is GoDaddy.
Uh, I want my name,
I want my
which I
name.
think is just IDGO
I want my
sub.
name.com.
Yeah, something like that. They used to be cheaper, but you know, like all the domain
Oh, it's
providers.
49 instead of 50.
Yeah.
And not for $50. Watch. 3 years from now, I'll be like, I should have freaking bought it for
Just
50
do
damn
it.
dollars.
I'll pay for it, but you buy it.
I'll do it in GoDaddy because that's where all my other ones are. Am I doing this? Am I really doing this?
It doesn't hurt to have the domain. You haven't got to commit to building a project.
That's right.
So we didn't move on to crochet. We moved on to domain purchasing, but that's not bad.
Steven's going to be like, what the hell? I
Oh,
leave you guys
Steven.
alone.
Where's Steven?
Where is Steven this week? 2 hours later. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Whoa. I go to sign in to GoDaddy. It says, your browser is a bit unusual. Enable JavaScript. Disconnect
have
from
JavaScript
VPN.
not
Oh,
enabled?
VPN. No, I don't have a VPN. Disable browser extensions? What are you talking about? It's kind of funny.
Go home,
Yeah.
go daddy.
Right? You're drunk.
You drunk?
Anyway. Laracast.tv. Laracast.tv. I mean, what? Why wouldn't you want this? I know nothing about. I actually do. Actually, I do. I do. So I worked for a big church a few 6 years ago, and I built. They had WordPress. They use WordPress for everything, but they had all of their they had the raw video files every week were uploaded to a server, and also on YouTube. But I built out their Roku. I built a Roku app, which is pretty cool to do
That's
that.
Android, isn't it?
I think it has to be. They have their own library, their own SDK or whatever. So it's just you just say you build it in their on a website, and then you supply the right feed. It has to be fed to them properly. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so
they're
which is
managing
actually
the whole lot.
that's actually wait, that's another business actually. Think about it. So I did that for them, and I did the Apple TV app for them too. That didn't get rolled out yet, but I was working on it. But that could be you could just like Transistor, like you record your thing, upload it over here, and we'll serve it to these platforms. You could do that with the video. And it's just a feed, just like the transistors. Oh my freaking God. That's another whole, that's a legitimate business
You're
idea.
just giving these ideas away.
I know. We should edit this video.
Nah. Let them have it. Let them have it.
Why we never edited any other video? Why do we start now? This is episode 6 again. That's another, never mind.
Oh, I've missed Steven.
I don't. No, I'm just kidding.
He said don't say nasty things about him.
I miss Steven. Steven's cool. I don't. He's
Do you
doing
know what it
something
was?
today.
He was busy.
He didn't say. He was very opaque.
Yeah. Oh, I hope he's all right.
My first thought is if he wasn't, he would tell us, but I don't know if he would.
This goes back to what we started with, man.
Oh man. Full
I'm
circle.
great. I'm great.
Perfect circle. I guess that means that it's time for the end.
I think so. It's an hour and 42 already.
Oh my God. We said we wouldn't do 2-hour videos anymore.
Well, it's not. We've still got 20 minutes to go.
Good thing all the good ideas are at the end. Nobody's going to listen this far except for Tendai.
You don't have to edit this.
Nope. We're good.
Cool. Well, yeah, we should wrap it because I got to go and get something. I got to do something.
If you like this video, and you or podcast, whatever, and you think that we have ideas that other people might want to steal, go ahead and share this out.
Yeah, don't just share the idea.
Do what?
Sorry. Don't just share the idea with them.
No.
Share the whole
this.
video.
Let them develop their own. Yeah, they can come along the journey, the process that got us to where we are, right? That's the magic. That's the magic. And also go to nativephp.com/iOS, sign up for EAP, give us your money. We will give it back to you tenfold with the effort that we're putting in. I promise that. That's for sure. If you have any desire at all to build actual apps for phones, Android and iPhone, support us because you won't have to learn anything new. We'll do all the work for you, and you can do it. On that note, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.